Hi everyone, Sweathany Band Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Taylor Swift album, Folklore. This is a new surprise album from pop singer and songwriter Taylor Swift. Not only did critics and fans not see the release of this album coming, but also the stylistic pivot that came with it. And sadly, no, I am not talking about black metal, as black metal as the cover of this album looks. Ever since her transition to pop in the 2010s, Taylor Swift has very steadily driven in that lane, and while I did enjoy the very low-key and rustic ballads that came on Lover that dropped last year, where Taylor mixed things up a bit stylistically, I did not anticipate that she would do a record with that vibe and that sound from front to back with a singer-songwriter flex. Now, Folklore, of course, is not a total abandon of Taylor's pop appeal. Multiple tracks on this project are merely a combination of folk and pop, or very lavishly arranged chamber pop. The National's Bryce and Aaron Dessner also had a large hand in the songwriting and instrumentation on this record too, which has given the record a very moody and indie appeal. It's exactly the type of elegant, syrupy, and mature melancholy that older millennials just eat up, and honestly, Taylor doesn't sound half bad doing it. The subtle string embellishments and easygoing guitar loops and sequenced beats on the opening track, The One, are quite nice. The production is groovy but cinematic and pretty detailed in its presentation, but it's not overbearing. It's not trying to hit you with every sound at once or at a volume where it overpowers the song or Taylor. Vocally, she's pretty spotlit as she delivers this poetry about an ex that she's wondering if they're doing cool shit, if they're happy, thinking about what she could have done or what could have changed in order for their relationship to have maintained. Sure, it's kind of cliche, and some of the word choices seem like they're operating out of this desperation to be related to, but it's still a genuinely sad song, and I think Taylor communicated her feelings really well here. Is the song a mind-blowing start to the record? No, but somehow it perfectly encapsulates the combination of sounds and ideas you're going to hear throughout. However, we do hit some immediate turbulence in the track list with the song Cardigan. Instead of defining herself and this album's style further, Taylor decides here to basically just write a Lana Del Rey song. It's a Lana Del Rey song. This track is easily one of the most derivative things that I've heard this year. Really about as derivative as a Greta Van Fleet song. Everything from the beats to the lyrics, to the vocal lines, to even the delivery that Taylor embraces on this track, that moany, slow, elongated, breathy singing. All of it sounds like some ultra-violence era Lana, and I don't know why. I get similar vibes off the track 7 too. While it's not as on the nose, this level of biting of one's contemporary is just unignorable, unflattering, and disappointing, especially for an artist who is as deep into her career as Taylor is. There are a few other spots on the record where Lana's influence very obviously comes up, like the closer, for example, but it does play out a lot more subtly there and in other moments too. The songs I mentioned, 7 and Cardigan, these moments are really where Taylor's like living in her shadow. Thankfully, things kick back into gear with the song The Last Great American Dynasty, which is a biographical excursion of sorts into a somewhat esoteric historical figure, with a peppy beat, some simple chords, and singing that runs a bit more like narration. Stylistically, it feels like a Mountain Goat song, but done in a sort of Taylor way. It's fun, it's tuneful, it's charming, and I can see why the song's story speaks to Taylor so much. It focuses on one Rebecca Harkness, a middle-class divorcee who married into the Standard Oil fortune. Her new husband died less than a decade after they had gotten married, making her incredibly rich, and also making her the target of a lot of criticism as she proceeded to live life on her own terms, ruining everything, as Taylor says in her song. There's a lot of opulence in the track, a lot of dealing with your haters and doing what you want to do, exactly the beat that Taylor marches to. Next in the track list, we have Exile featuring Justin Bon Iver Vernon on vocals. He favors his lower register very tastefully on this track, which I like. Creates quite a bit of vocal chemistry with Taylor too, as it is a genuinely good duet. There are some simple but elegant background vocals, strings, and pianos set as the foundation. I'm just enchanted by it, from the subtle intro to the vocal climax in the second half where Justin and Taylor are just like this. The lyrics on the track are pretty heart-wrenching too, even with Taylor having to constantly liken relationships to films. And while yeah, this is a breakup song, get ready to hear it at every white girl wedding for the next 5 years. My Tears Ricochet is another slow burner with all of the markings of a powerful millennial cry anthem. We have a very spacey intro with chilly choral vocals, vocal lines on the verse that seem to be pulling from Lana a bit once more, but then these throbbing synthesizers push things into a chorus that is a lot more distinct stylistically. Taylor's vocals at this point on the song are pretty stunning and emotional, as lyrically she is telling the story of a very ugly blow-up between two people, which for Taylor could be related to a few different things. I mean, she hasn't been afraid to engage with and compete with those in the industry who have written her off or put her down or tried to slight her or prevent her progress. I just love the track as a very flowery and powerful way of depicting a very unsightly occurrence for all parties involved. From here we get the track Mirror Ball, which for me is one of a few tracks that is a little confusing on the production end. This and the song August, even though they are very different songs, both suffer from roughly the same mixing pitfalls, strangely. I like the songwriting on both of these tracks. They seem to have an incredible amount of potential, but both of them are wrapped in this horribly hollow, washed out production that totally sucks out the bass, and the drums are so faint they're barely even there, which just ends up leaving the vocals sounding unsupported and the guitars really kind of layer over each other in a way that feels very syrupy, just no backbone to it, sort of hazy and ill-defined. No idea what's driving both tracks to sound this way, but it's not doing Taylor's songwriting any favors. Things then pick up though on the song This Is Me Trying, where we do get some similarly cavernous production, but at least the drums and the vocals and the keys feel a bit more balanced. The song at the core of this track unfurls like a dramatic 80s pop ballad, yet aesthetically it plays out a lot more like a Phoebe Bridgers track, but with enough pumpkin spice in it to play it in a Starbucks, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I do like it, and I do enjoy some of Taylor's lyricism here. The sound of the following Illicit Affairs is a lot more dry by comparison, very bare vocals and acoustic guitar on this one, finger picking too. Some progressively swelling strings that support a story of an affair that gets dirtier and less glamorous as it goes on. There was a really good song about an affair on the recent Laura Marling album too, and I would say this Taylor song is like on that level in terms of heartbreak and passion and lyrical detail. Then to move on to Invisible String, we have a groovy folk pop cut with some very nimble and sticky vocal lines, which I did not pull off just now. However, I do love these songs' cute lyrics about fate, being tied to someone like it's destiny, showing all the ways in which her and this love interest overlap in terms of environment, like you're at my favorite restaurant and also my song is playing on the radio of your cab, which, I mean, is probably the case for a lot of people. Your music plays everywhere. Not my favorite song here, but sweet to the ear nonetheless. Mad Woman is then the inevitable feminist jam that we all saw coming, and I do like the sentiment of the song. I do. This idea of legitimizing anger and unhappiness when it is written off or ignored or seen as irrational, which makes Taylor in the song progressively more angry, to the point where she is breathing flames each time she talks. The rage! But while the narrative is cool, vocally and instrumentally, this is yet another instance of Lana worship on the record. Why? You made her like that. Thankfully, the song Epiphany moves away from that. It is a beautifully lustrous moment on the record. Lots of organ, piano, shimmering and pillowy reverb. It sounds like I'm listening to some somber church hymnal. Topically, the song is pretty heavy as well, as the lyrics deal in our current-day pandemic-stricken America, drawing parallels between the deadly virus and a deadly war. Specifically, I think she's referencing the storming of the beaches at Normandy. Then moving on to lyrics like "serve with you, I fall with you," once again drawing parallels between fighting for each other in a battalion or in a platoon, or also fighting with each other against a virus and trying to keep one another safe. And this idea of serving, given the tone and the sound of the music, I think also might have a religious angle to it as well. The track does sound quite godly. Then Betty, which might be my favorite track on the record. We have some very raw, folky, fingerpick guitar, sunshiny, golden harmonica. It's quite Dylan-esque, but the real selling point of the song for me is the story, which is told in character from a first-person perspective, getting into the Taylor lore. Apparently this track, references back to other songs and characters on the record. There is clearly a reference to the cardigan in the song's closing lyrics, but even without the deeper context, the song is enjoyable in isolation, with the main character having realized they love this person whose feelings they hurt. They're young, they're dumb, they're a teenager. So with a really gutsy chorus, Taylor portrays this person as showing up at a party and asking, "Oh, would you want me? Would you have me? Or would you just say, fuck you?" It's catchy, it's funny, it's about young, volatile love, and it feels like it. The song Peace I also love quite a bit, even though it's not the most well-structured track on the entire record. It's like a really cool, moody monologue, just a lyrical meditation before the whole record closes out. Then with the song Hoax, I think we just get a so-so closer here. It's a bland piano ballad, and lyrically it doesn't really tie up much about the record. It's just sort of another instance of Taylor being dealt a shitty hand on the poker table of love, but I suppose I do find the metaphor of the track kind of clever, this love being a hoax that she's believing in, a lie, a conspiracy in a way. However, it's a metaphor she only scratches the surface of, as the second verse doesn't really dig much deeper into it. Overall, I think this is a pretty good record. Taylor is definitely on an upward trend post Reputation. Lover did have some refreshing spots on it, and frankly, I think Folklore is even better, more consistent, better performances, storytelling, production overall. Yes, there are some duds and derivative moments too, but there's still plenty to enjoy on Folklore. Feeling a light 7 on this one. Transition, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like, please subscribe, and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up, or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Taylor Swift, forever.